Welcome back to Real Estate Real Talk, your real estate call-in talk show. If you'd like to ask us a question as we stumble our way through this conversation today, please give us a ring, 737-7587. Happy to address anything that's on your mind real estate related. My guest is John Dotson. John is a realtor with the Zeitling Group, and he had the misfortune of stumbling in, as we say, to the neighborhood association business, and probably the most prominent neighborhood in Nashville, Music Row. We were talking about the training that the mayor's office is willing to give to you, and just if anybody's just tuning in, the mayor's office does offer training for people who want to get a neighborhood association off the ground in their area, and you attended those.
I did. There were 4 of them.
4 of them, and are they free? Do they cost anything? Or?
They're free. It takes your time, but they're exceptionally well organized and way worth the time.
And that happened on what, 4 consecutive weeks?
It happened, there was actually 2 or 3 weeks between them. They started in February, and the last one was started in January rather, and the last one was just a couple of weeks ago.
And you're going to be certified dangerous now.
I already was.
Yes, you were. Well, and you were just getting into one of the great things that you learned about that is the community relations officers with the local precincts. And so if you could go back to that.
Sure. One of the things that I did learn in the course of it is that in each police precinct there is a community relations officer, and he's not just there to be sure people know that there is a police precinct and the protection that the Metro offers, but also to be sure that the community knows how to take advantage of all the resources that there are, from trash pickup to water services to all of those things. Because at the end of the day, that's one of the things that neighborhood associations ends up dealing with. It's the vacant lots and uncut grass and picking up the dog poop and all of those things. But having some idea of where to go,
a central resource,
right, gets them done. And I think where there's a lot of wisdom here is that clearly the police are the boots on the ground. They're out in the community in a way that very few other sources of help are in Metro. So I think they're a logical place to be. Thus far in my experience, they've gone through a process to choose the right person to do this. I'll give you an example. The guy at Midtown's name is Sergeant Raymond Jones.
What a guy.
He's a rock star. He is great at what he does. I think he should consider a stand-up comic career. I mean, he's that comfortable in front of people. And I think what's important about that is that you feel comfortable with him, and therefore you're going to feel comfortable coming up to somebody's wearing a badge and a gun and saying, I got a problem with my water services. I got a problem with a mattress that's been laying in this vacant lot. And you feel like you're going to have somebody that listens to you and helps you.
And to the police's benefit, the more communication they have with the neighborhood, the more able they are to do their job more effectively and quietly, and it's a win-win for everybody. But so many people don't know about these things.
Right, and that I think was kind of the wisdom behind all of this, and I give Carl Dean a lot of credit for coming up with this, and then coming up with Courtney Wheeler, who is wonderful and organizing these. I would encourage any other mayoral candidate to continue this office and find somebody that is as good as Courtney Wheeler that can do this. The other benefit that I think that it has to the city is that it creates a communication through the city that makes the big issues a lot more digestible. I think that there are some ways, for example, things like mass transit, which are a hot topic. This whole system would benefit the process of deciding what we're going to do next for mass transit.
Yeah, you hear so often that, well, I'm only one person, I don't have a voice, and so on. If you can get organized and have a speaker for your area be able to come to the table, then there's a lot of communication, and Metro Planning is there to help. They are there to help make everybody happy, and it's a difficult job, but these are great ideas to help them along. Speaking of planning, they like this concept for more than just that reason. And I know that you've spent a lot of time with Doug Sloan over there, and with planning in general. Why are they so fond of this concept?
The planning concept of the deferrals you're talking about?
Well, no, of the neighborhood associations.
Oh, neighborhood association.
For everyone.
In its simplest essence, what an effective neighborhood association does is it takes all the different opinions in a neighborhood and it reconciles them down into a consensus. And if you sit in the chair of Doug Sloan or the other really good folks at planning, you need to have some sense as you make big scale plans like this, things are going to have an effect for 10 or 20 years, that you really have a good opinion from the neighborhood itself. These are the people that are going to be most affected by what they do, and this group of folks really wants to be sure that there's healthy growth and that the people who are affected by it like what's happening, go along with it, and that the cooperation is there. So if you have a good neighborhood association, you bring all the voices into one room and have a conversation. Now, people are not going to all agree with one another, but I think that there are a number of experiences we could cite where if you don't allow for those voices to be in that room, they'll go get a bullhorn. And that bullhorn may not work out for the greater good. So it always works out better to come into a room, express your opinion. Nobody's going to get everything that they want, but as we were talking a minute ago, there are two pieces to communication. There's the saying and there's the hearing. So those who are organizing a neighborhood association need to take care that they do communicate on an effective basis and over a period of time so people do have the opportunity to participate. At the same time, if you get a call, if you get an email, if you get a letter, you should open it.
Yeah.
That's the hearing part, because if you'll be surprised at how many times something that seems like, oh, there's no way that this is ever going to happen, and it passes. And then other things like, oh, this isn't going to happen, and it does. So we have only to look at our state legislature to see how things can turn out there. So the point I'm making is show up. Express your point of view, because once the process passes, if you've not shown up, there will be a group of people who care and show up, and they will get what they want, and you may or may not like that. So I'm just encouraging you, show up.
There's consensus in numbers.
Yes.
And you know, this has come up a number of times in our respective neighborhoods where somebody didn't like what was going down, and I didn't know anything about this, and I'm going to pitch a fit right now, and you don't want the response to be, well, you know, we've had 6 neighborhood associations and 100 people have showed up, and this is what we've come up with. If you didn't come, I don't know what else to tell you, because we've sent the mail, and we have a website, and there's a Facebook page and everything else that's out there. I know you have sent a lot of mail.
Yes.
How have you reached everybody? That what other means have you done?
Well, first, I did start with the mail. We went through the tax records. I got the names and addresses of the property owners. I sent letters to what was listed as their most current mailing address. And I felt like it was important to send a letter. It was important that they receive something they can touch and feel. You know, in a high-tech environment, high touch is a great offset. I also felt like it made a statement about how sincere and important this whole process was, and for them to receive that and see, you know, this is something that I need to pay attention to. Of course, the one small disappointment about that is I've still gotten, last week I got a couple of calls from people who got letters I mailed on the 3rd of March saying, wow, did I miss the meeting? Yeah, you kind of missed the meeting.
Well, it was gratifying. I think you told me that you had gotten, in one case, 4 responses back, RSVPs to one of your meetings, yet, what, 50 people showed up or something like that.
Right.
So.
We started with the commercial property owners on Music Row, and then the second group of people were the residential property owners, and I got a really high response from the commercial property owners and not much response in terms of RSVPs from the residential folks, but we had a terrific crowd show up. So I have to give Freddie O'Connell, who's running for the 19th district, credit. He also was very involved in the Salem Town Neighborhood Association coming together, and he's been a lot of help to me in understanding the evolution of these things. And so once we sent the letters and people showed up at each one of the meetings, I encourage people a number of times to be sure that I have your email address, because it'll be easier for all of us. Thus far, I've sent almost 1,000 letters, and it's me writing the letters, generating them, putting in an envelope, putting a stamp on them. I mean, I care about it, and I want to be sure that it's done right.
You must get paid a lot for all of this.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Let me say this. The value that I feel here is that I understand from my time on Music Row and my time in real estate how important this is. The statement I hear probably more than any is like, wow, I can't believe this has never been done before. Is it?
It is amazing that Music Row the iconic Music Row has never had any organization to it before. And I think I joked on our program when planning said, you guys need to decide what you want here. And everybody looked at each other and said, well, who are you talking to? Because there wasn't a group set up. However, we were talking earlier that there are a lot of great neighborhood associations around town, and if you look at what has happened to their area, it's very impressive. And Wedgwood Houston, I think, was one of them, which is going through a total renaissance over there. But they are very, very active and involved, as is their council person, on being sure that if there's going to be development or something to change, that it fits what we're looking for, and then they cycle that out. But we were talking about some others.
I wanted to get another one that I thought was a really excellent example is Cleveland Park.
Right.
And Cleveland Park and what I saw happen there really framed my perspective on Music Row. Because in its own way, Cleveland Park is just as diverse as Music Row is. And the consistent outcome is when there is an effective neighborhood association, things turn around, property values go up, it's a better place to live, the quality of life improves, safety improves, it's a great place for families. So I've just seen that in neighborhood after neighborhood. And then there are other issues such as the Richland West End Neighborhood Association. Because of its location, you think, oh, how hard is that? There's so much opportunity for development in that neighborhood, and there is a campus of the Welsh Bible College that has been back and forth and in play. And in the end, I think that there's been a really good deliberative process to decide what to do next with that piece of land. It's a little over 7 acres in the neighborhood. So when it's all said and done, the quality of the neighborhood, I think, will continue. Not everybody's going to agree with how it comes out, but it's its own example of how to move it forward. And then bringing that back to Music Row, again, there was such a feeling of disconnection, for example, between the residential property owners and the commercial tenants, because the commercial tenants on Music Row include Sony Music and Clear Channel radios. I mean, they just don't feel a connection. The reality is they share this piece of land. Yeah. Therefore, they're much more connected than they realize. And I've also had the experience of people, I'll give you an example, a lady named Marianne Howland, who owns Ibis Communications. She's been on Music Row for 15 years. Through the course of these meetings, met people that are just 2 or 3 doors down that have been there for 10 years she'd never met before. So what we're doing is we're creating a sense of community. And this is one of the things that really came out of the mayor's training was the place you got to start is whatever you do to encourage a sense of community, that people feel a shared sense of responsibility and a reason to get out.
That is so important, and unless you have a neighborhood who happens to have an annual picnic or something like that, that's your only opportunity to meet some of these people. And yet this has given everyone a terrific opportunity on a very regular basis to know their neighbors and to if you feel like the house next door there's something illegal going on in there and you're just one voice, you don't like your odds. And yet if you group together as an association like this, you can really make a difference. For anybody who doesn't know, Cleveland Park is on the East Nashville side of the river, on either side of Ellington Parkway, I guess. And Richland West End is just off West End Avenue, just past 440. There is, that one is also in the newspaper recently because there has been 7 acres, I guess, right? Of a college that is for sale who are moving away from that area and need a little bit more room, and they're land bound there. And so it's been for sale, and of course developers are looking at it, and it's very expensive. And to make it work, it has to have to have a certain size. And so they're coming up with their plans, coming neighborhoods. Well, that doesn't really fit into our neighborhood, and because of that, the dialogue that's happened, some people have decided maybe it's a better idea not to do it, and if they do decide, it will fit in and have a more pleasant look to it. So lot going on in town. You were not. You didn't have anything getting built on Music Row. They tapped you for this, and so and they got the right guy, I will say, for the job. But
thank you.
But you're making headway, and I think we should. I can go do this, but I want you to, what the in-between step is that we are in right now, and then how it will be handed off.
Sure. I think a good place to start is, again, I'm the Vice President of the Music Industry Coalition. We saw the need for this, and we are organizing the Music Row Neighborhood Association. At the same time, the Music Row Neighborhood Association is going to operate independently and separately from Music Industry Coalition. We will have a seat on the board and have a voice because we represent basically the nurturing of creativity, particularly on Music Row, but in music in general in Nashville. So given that we're organizing this, we want to have a voice. But the important thing is that we're going to organize this in a way where the stakeholders have a voice. And again, going back to what I've seen other places in real estate, the effectiveness of a good neighborhood association and the diversity of this neighborhood just really was calling out for that. So where I felt like there was a moment where I could make a contribution was because of the length of time that I spent in the music business. I knew and still know a lot of the folks that work there and turn the cranks, and I saw what the potential was for a good outcome and for a not so good outcome. And I just felt like this was one of those moments that I promise you I never thought 30 years of music biz experience would pay off in this way. But for me, if in 10 years there is something that is grand and glorious about Music Row, where people want to live, that businesses are thriving on Music Row, and there's a tourism base and some new places for tourists to go and have a different experience of Music Row, I'm going to be very proud of that.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be a plaque at the front of Music Row that says, guess who did this? It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that the experience continues to be good.
Yeah, and outside of having a voice on Metro planning, there are a lot of things to go fix on Music Row. You know, some of these buildings are more pleasant to look at than others, and it doesn't have its total identity down, and a slew of other things which we can get to in just a minute. But I think it's a good time to take a break, so let's do that. We're going to come back here in just a moment with some more thoughts on neighborhood associations, in particular Music Row.